everybody. Good evening. Lynn said to me just a second ago, we've been planning this, I think, for 2 years. And she said to me, and this is a comment that I hear so often, she said, I'm disappointed with the turnout. And I said, I think, gentlemen, you were talking about, there was a motivational speaker yesterday here. And I wanted to say, oh, who'd you have? I think I was so much more popular when I was just a motivational speaker. As a mental health speaker, I'm not as popular, but I'm having more. Why are you late? No, I'm just kidding. I had to break the ice there a little bit. And I'm saying that because this is not a conversation that people want to come to. It's not a conversation people want to be seen at. Because it's kind of like, well, if I'm there and somebody sees me and they go, oh, the Joneses were there. I thought everything was like the perfect family. Why were they there? I wonder if they haven't. It's like you can't just be here to support the community, or we can't just be here to get more education. So I understand, and I think it's disappointing for you because you wish that more of the community would be here to help our community normalize the conversation, and also to make it so that our young people that are having a mental health challenge would feel safer in reaching out. The other thing I want to say too is those of you that do come are usually not the parents I need to talk to. I know that. But then, like I said, you're videotaping it, and I think that's awesome. So it'll have its own shelf life, and the people that need to watch it, they might watch it. The other thing I also, as you get older, you do things without expecting anything in return. So nonetheless, I'm happy. I love the conversation. I'm excited that you're all here, and thank you for coming out. So let's get rolling. Our teens have, this is what I've gathered in all of my years working in education, teen mental health, and teen suicide. Teens will tell you what they want, material things. But then teens end up coming to say, they have everything they want. What they don't have is what they start to realize that they need, is that parental support, relationship, and guidance. So that's what that means. Teens have everything they want. They don't have what they need. And as I talk about this, I want to kind of get it out of the way. Much of what we're dealing with teen mental health, I really think is a parent's responsibility. And I hope I'm going to try and be very safe in this conversation. I tend to get myself in trouble. I wrote a book. It's nice. All right, growing up in self-esteem. So I've been doing this for like 30 years, and with social media today and podcasts and newspapers, I get phone calls and emails and people like, hey, Jeff, can we talk about teens today? Sure. One of the conversations that I always have, the questions that I'm always asked is, if we could give young people one thing, what would that one thing be? I don't hesitate. I say self-esteem. And as parents or a teacher to a student, a coach to an athlete, we're going to say to our kids, hey, you're smart, you're capable, you've got the ability, you can do this, you can do that. What I'm feeling is we are believing in our kids more than our kids are believing in themselves. And I think that's the problem. Growing up means making mistakes. My daughter's here with me, and we're driving up from Philadelphia, and we were talking about mistakes that I made growing up, and now she's an adult. Mistakes that, as I look back, wish I had done this, wish I had done that. Our kids are going to make mistakes. I think that's a good thing. We don't want our kids to fail. We don't want them to hit rock bottom, and we're not going to let them hit rock bottom. But I think we learn from the mistakes that we make. Let's not be the victim. Let's be the victor. Let's not be bitter. Let's choose to be better. This is one of my favorites. You remember, I think it was 4 years ago, when we had those college scandals, when parents were paying schools to. I had such a great time following all that. This was in USA Today. 15% of parents call or text their college-age child to make sure that they wake up on time to get to class or to take that exam. And I'm kind of thinking, if you're paying that kind of money for your child to go to school, and you've got to text your kid to make sure that they're in class, or on time, I don't think your kid should be in school. No, I don't think you should be paying for it. Growing up means making your own decisions and sometimes mistakes. Prepare your child for the road ahead instead of what I think many parents are doing is we're preparing the road ahead for the child. It's kind of like your kids might have friends come over. No, let me go mow the lawn before you go out and play. Just go out and play. You'll be fine. Why is mental health awareness important? Well, they say there's a clear connection between mental health and your academic performance. 5 out of 5 people have physical health. 5 out of 5 people also have mental health. I think mental health is important to talk about it because it's not just academic performance. You got a beautiful theater here. You know, I think your mental health plays a role in how you come out to break a leg on stage. Not literally break a leg, but if any of you know theater, you know that's a term, never mind. Research clearly shows that better outcomes are a result when we're addressing mental health and we're addressing it early. I think it's also important because we have a responsibility of silencing the stigma and facing these challenges. Let me get this out of the way too. When we were growing up, most of us, when you talked about mental health, you talked about bipolar, schizophrenia, or these clinical diagnoses. My opinion, and I get in trouble with a lot of professionals, Dr. Quinnett, QPR. Yep, this is being recorded, probably shouldn't have said that. We have a difficult relationship because he doesn't agree with much of what I say. I think he's a genius nonetheless. I think mental health started to change at around 2012. And here's why I say that. Around 2012, our devices started to become more like every day. Not just the devices, but our tablets, social media, our computers. We started to bring them into school. We started using them as resources. Mental health today, specifically teen mental health, I think there's the clinical side, there's the non-clinical. I'm very non-clinical because one of the things that I do in my work with mental health professionals and doctors is I'm trying to teach them to simplify the language to help us normalize the conversation and not make it so intimidating. So what I'm trying to say is when you look at mental health today, the biggest concern for young people, anxiety. Social phobias, they're overwhelmed, they're stressed. It all comes down to 2 things, I think, specifically. Lack of coping skills, lack of problem-solving skills. So as I'm talking to you today, that's kind of the route that I'm taking. I have a private client, and I was meeting with this 14-year-old last night. This young lady is already as a freshman, a 5-time state champion in rowing, academically very gifted. Father died of COVID. Reckless behavior, acting out without thinking of consequences. And like I said to the family, let's address the non-clinical before we get to the clinical. When you try and bring kids directly to the clinical, they're not going to talk, they're not going to open up. That's why our kids aren't even communicating with us, because they think that we're going to judge them. They think we're going to try and fix it. We're not validating their thoughts and their feelings. And I think kids are afraid to talk because they don't even know how they're feeling. Or many of us would say, well, when I was your age, I didn't have to deal with that. Growing up today is harder than it's ever been. I think parenting is harder than it's ever been. And we're also, let's separate mental health challenge from mental health crisis. Mental health challenge is when a situation affects your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors. Crisis is when the challenge that affects your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors starts to turn into, well, I'm now thinking of harming myself or harming other people, and we're going to get that. So that's why I think it's so important to start having this conversation. And I think the more we have this conversation, the more you slowly start seeing people come out, because it's not like this taboo subject. I threw some pictures in on here. Jeff, you helped save my son after his brother chose to end his life. Then again, you were there for me and him when my daughter took her life. This is Cherokee, Oklahoma, this text. If we were able to create this safe space where people felt comfortable and not judged in talking, I probably wouldn't get a text like this where she talks about her son and then her daughter. And another thing is, like, you come to a community like this and, well, this isn't my community. That's not going to happen. I can't begin to tell you how many times I've had people in the audience that came to support the community, and 6 months later, I'm messaging them back and forth. Jeff, I never thought this would happen to me. That's why this is so important that we get comfortable being uncomfortable talking about this. All right, we're going to get deep now. This is my theory. And again, I'm going to try and tie this in to what I said earlier about 2012. Can you see that okay? All right. So when I come into a high school, and no, I did not speak in this community, but when I come into a high school and speak, I'll spend an hour and a half with students, and then I spend the rest of the afternoon with the counselors and kids one-on-one. Kids will sign up to want to come talk. And I think it's like, they think, oh, that guy kind of seems cool. Guy's got a tattoo. Oh, I will never see him again. Maybe he'll be comfortable to talk to. And we have a great conversation. As I'm talking to them, I want to share with you, before I get to the meat of this, how I like to operate with teenagers. When you come in, hey, man, thank you for coming. I want to normalize. I want to make them feel comfortable. Hey, sit down wherever you want to sit. And I always just take another seat. I like to sit on the same level. I don't want to be the counselor. I don't want to be the therapist. I don't want to be the coach. I don't want to be the MTV guy. I don't want to be the speaker. I just want to compassionately listen. That's it. And so as I'm listening, I then pretty much always ask these two questions. Hey, man, can I ask you a question? Yeah. Do you feel alone? Number one. Most kids say, yeah. And I say, what does that mean to you? I like, in my conversation, to give them the opportunity to speak as much as they want. Now, one of the most important things I'm going to say tonight is going to happen right now. Whether you're a parent, coach, teacher, you're the master, dog, they ask the question too. There's two questions that I think we have to answer every single day. Question number one is, can I trust you? And you might say, well, Jeff, I'm a parent. Of course my child can trust me. That's a different trust. Can they trust you with some intimate thoughts and feelings that they're embarrassed to maybe share because they think you might judge them? So remember that. Can I trust you? Stop thinking, well, I'm the parent. You're my daughter, my son. Of course you can. No, you got to answer that question. The second question is, do you care about me? And I like that when I think about compassionate listening. Compassionate listening is listening without thinking about how you're going to respond. So I asked, do you feel alone? Yeah. what does that mean to you? And they're like, nah, I don't know. To the individual, it means that they don't have many meaningful relationships. And we might look at them, you're on the phone every single day. You're out with your friends, you play sports. Of course you have meaningful relationships. It's a different world for them. And it's not their fault. You only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know. Look at how they're growing up. You and I can remember, we didn't have phones. I often think I got up here from Philadelphia, Tori and I are driving up. We had not just one GPS, we had two, her phone and my phone. I remember traveling when I had to get maps. I'd go through my files. Where's New Jersey map? Oh, there's New Jersey. Okay, I'm going to Missouri tomorrow. I got to get Missouri too. And so they don't know what life is like before these devices. Now remember too, with the device comes a chemical that alters our thoughts called dopamine. And so every time you're on the device, there's a chemical that's screaming out, I want more, I want more, I want more. So to them, they feel like they don't have meaningful relationships. Let me share with you, I put my phone away. Our phone has become our connection to the world. Our phone should not be our connection to the world. And I think that's and I just saw mom look at her daughter and just, you have that conversation later. I also want to say this too, and I'm saying this more for the cameras. You can't come out tonight and be like, I went to see that fat bald guy speak tonight. Pretty good. Yeah, I'm going to go home. I'm going to start parenting. You can't start parenting your 16-year-old child now. That's like we're parenting on the back end, trying to recover from what we should have been doing on the front end. So I think you can start to build more of that relationship, but I think it started way back when. So meaningful relationships. The second question I like to ask is, so do you feel like maybe you're a disappointment? And what does that mean? Disappointment to yourself, a disappointment to your parents, a disappointment to your coach, your teachers, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. Yeah. So do you feel maybe you're a burden to your parents? Because I'll often ask is, why don't you talk to your parents? Oh, no. Kids today, and we never had to go through this. Kids today are adulting and having to deal with adult issues and adult conversations that they shouldn't have to be a part of. But I also think that's a byproduct of the world that we live in. Everything is in the here and the now. And so I think it's part of we live in a world that has just become desensitized. When's the next disaster? When's the next hurricane? When's the next school shooting? Yep, just another day. So I don't want to be a burden. I feel like I'm a disappointment. I don't want to burden my parents with my problems because I know about their problems. And if I talk to them about my problems are just going to be on top of their problems, and they've got too much to deal with. So they're going to isolate and they're going to try and deal with it themselves. If your kids don't learn to speak it out, they're going to act it out. That's why we have such an incredible responsibility to create that space where they feel comfortable and safe talking. And our job is to compassionately listen. I remember about a year and a half ago, her name is Ray, and the interview is on YouTube. I was driving. I lived in Myrtle Beach. I was moving down to Jacksonville. And for some reason, United Way's 211 crisis line came into my cell phone at this time. And I'm driving, the windows are down, I'm listening to Sugarland because Jennifer Nettles is awesome. And you guys like her too? Never mind, I'll talk about it later. And the phone call comes in, and it's this Ray, 27 years old, former teacher, first responder, paramedic, and she's screaming, don't give me hope. I don't want to hear about hope. I'm tired of hope. I'm blah, blah, blah. And I stopped and I was like, okay, excuse me, who am I talking to? My name is Ray. Ray, my name is Jeff Yalden. Can you just give me 1 minute so I can pull over because I want to be present with you? I pull over. I spent about 40 minutes on the phone with her. We met the next morning. I was able to get her hospitalized up in Washington State for a month. She's doing great now. She was just coming off the beach with her family at a family vacation. She had bought the gun earlier that day. She said to me that she felt comfortable coming off the beach knowing that she would never see another sunset again. Ready to go inside and to end her life. And she's yelling at me to not try and save her, to give her hope. And I'm a little bit different in my approach. And I said to her, I said, you know, Ray, there's got to be a little bit of hope, otherwise you wouldn't have called me. And it kind of like stunned her. The point I'm trying to make, she's alive today because she said that she thinks there's no counselor, doctor, or therapist would ever pull over to say, I want to be completely present with you. I just wanted to listen. I wanted to meet her where she was at. As parents, when your child, even a friend, if they're going through that crisis or that challenge, don't freak out. Don't overreact. Just think of how you can be so present where they are, because that's what they need. This burden and this disappointment represents a belief on the part of the individual that they're not making a notable contribution to the world, or they feel like they're this liability to their family. Now, what a lot of these suicide prevention programs say, okay, let's get comfortable asking the question. And I agree. I think we should be comfortable talking about suicide. Are you thinking of wanting to end your life? Well, hold on. I don't think anybody wants to die by suicide. In all of my years, and I don't think there's anybody that has been in the depths of dealing with suicide like I have, whether it's an incomplete suicide or it's a completed suicide. I'm talking to the family. I don't think people want to die. What I'm hearing, whatever pain they're feeling, whatever's broken in their heart, they want that to end. But young people today living in the here and the now, because life is in the here and the now. But life is not in the here and the now. And I don't think it's their fault. You put a card in an ATM, cash comes out. You send a text, you get a response. You post a selfie, you get a likey. When you're dealing with issues and problems and you want it to go away, it doesn't go away the way you want it to go away so that you can just move on. Patience in the process. So before I get to the, do you want to die? Here's where I think things we need to address. Where they all intersect. Alone, disappointment, thoughts of suicide. In the middle is self-harm. If you don't speak it out, you're going to act it out. I'm talking to this 14-year-old in Miami last night. Mom, in my interview with Mom knows nothing about her daughter's self-harm. I'm surprised in my first conversation with her, she shared with me what she shared. You don't speak it out, you act it out. Here's self-harm. Growing up, we know it as cutting. Most people cutting. It was mostly girls then. Actually, boys are more prone to self-harming behaviors than girls today. It's not just cutting. It could be reckless behavior. It could be self-medicating. It could be burning, pulling your hair, punching yourself. It comes in so many different things. Now could you just turn the camera off for a second? Never mind. Who cares? I'm starting to retire anyway. You're good. Thank you. No, you're good. Thank you. I'm just going to say something that I hope people hear what I'm saying, but you'll understand in a second. When I find out that somebody is self-harming, that's one of the worst cases of cutting I think I've ever seen, and that was a week old. When somebody comes to me and I'm finding out about self-harm, I feel very comfortable. That I like how I said that. Let me tell you why. It's when somebody, self-harm is about control. It's about wanting to take back the power. They want control of it. And like for cutting, when blood is exposed, the endorphins come up and they start to feel better. It's when a child is not feeling. That is when I'm really concerned. I call that growing up dead. So when a child comes forward and I see that there's self-harming behaviors, I'm like, good. Because what that means to me is they're asking for help, but they don't know how to ask for help. They want to speak it out, but they don't know how to speak it out. Or they're afraid that you're going to judge them, or they don't feel comfortable. They don't even know what they're feeling. But when I find that out, that's a place where I am like, okay, we got something to work with. Now, let me say this too. Is self-harm the right way of coping with your issue? No, unhealthy. Our job is to give them healthy coping skills so that they won't resort to self-harming behaviors. I'm speaking at a Division I college program in the Midwest. It was about 3 years ago. And I'm speaking to all the athletes, big-time Division I, Big Ten school. Captain of the football team, senior, comes down afterwards, and he's like looking around because nobody wants to be seen talking to the mental health guy. And so he comes up to me and he says, hey, Jeff, can I ask you something? I said, yeah, man, hey, how you doing? What's your name? Blah, blah, blah. I says, yeah. He said, can I, what do you think about smoking pot? I thought for a second, and I said, I always, if I can't be honest, I don't want to do this. And I said, I've never tried it. I don't smoke. I don't know why. I just never did. I said, but if it's okay, can I ask you a question on the question you asked me? He says, yeah. I said, so I feel that by you asking me that, maybe you're conflicted and maybe have partaken in it. And I'm not judging, but, maybe it's after game. You and the guys, you go out, you take a hit. Or maybe there's something you're dealing with and smoking pot makes you feel better. And he's like, acknowledge me. He said, yeah. I said, if you don't mind, is there something that you're dealing with that you need to talk about? Yeah. I said, well, what is it? He said, I'm a senior. I'm the captain of the football team. Yeah, I'm getting ready to graduate. My parents are going through a divorce. My girlfriend and I have been together for 4 years, and we're not doing well. I got the NFL Combine coming up, and I'm like, you've got a lot going on. Yeah, I said, okay. So let me ask you a question. If I could give you in a healthy way, what we just talked about, to help you deal with what you're dealing with in an unhealthy way, would you be interested in what I had to say? He said, well, yeah. I said, on college campuses, they got free counseling. The NFL, every NFL team in the country has a mental health professional except the Jacksonville Jaguars. Did you know that? Hopefully you don't get drafted by them. He said, no, I didn't know that. And the Jaguars do now because I said something. I had nothing to do with it, but yeah, they do. I said, would you be interested in, me introducing you to the counselor, the department that brought me in? He's, well, sure. And I said, I'll go through the conversation with you. So I invite the lady over, and they started talking throughout the remainder of the year. He's now, I think, in his 3rd year in the NFL, and he still pays out of his pocket that same therapist at the school to work with him, and he considers that therapist having changed his life. And all it took was someone to just give him permission to say, it's okay to have someone to talk to. I don't know why there's this like taboo of, well, I don't need to talk to somebody. How great is it to have somebody to talk to that's non-judgmental, that, will validate your thoughts and feelings? I mean, they're not going to enable you, but you're able to think for yourself. So that's where I'm more concerned about. Are they self-harming? That is, okay, let's talk. Parents, don't react. Think about that. If your child comes home and they're cutting and you react, well, of course, well, that's why I haven't talked to you. But the calmer you are, your child is going to maybe, I don't know, over time, they're probably going to feel a little bit more comfortable knowing that you're not going to react. You're not going to punish them. You're not going to yell at them. So I think all of that becomes that desire. Also, the desire for suicide represents habituation to physiological pain and fearsome experiences to repeated exposure to painful and provocative events. The more our kids go through traumatic events, the more they're going to start thinking, maybe that's what I need to do. Now, I'll also say this. Boys are 4 times more likely than girls to complete the act of suicide. Girls, though, are 4 times more likely than boys to attempt. Does that make sense? So boys, 4 times completion. Girls, 4 times attempt. I'll share with you the difference. Work with me here. This is just me thinking. What I've come to learn about women, and I'm not good with women, Tori can tell you that. Women are like a processor. You're like a computer. You process things. Men are like, where's the hammer? Bam, fixed. Okay. Men are reactionary. Women, you're just a little smarter. You think things through. Did I say that safely? Okay, you're not walking out yet. Okay. Men, suicide, typically firearm. Unless it's the military. Women, men, same. Women, typically overdose or strangulation. Here's what happens. Men, reaction, firearm, pull the trigger, done. And I don't think people really think about the finality of suicide. Women will think about, well, what am I going to wear? Who's going to find me? Where? I got to write a note. And I feel that what happens is when you start thinking those things through, something happens where you start thinking, I'm not thinking in a healthy manner. And so they might send a text, or might reach out, or they might pull themselves back and be like, oh my gosh, what am I thinking? All right. Do teens want to die? Kind of what I just said. Suicide, a forever decision, a permanent action to a temporary situation. I don't think they want to die. They're looking to find a solution to their problems in the here and the now. Therefore, they don't see a solution to reach and move forward, so suicide becomes the solution to their pain in the here and the now that they live in, but that's where I talked about self-harm before. If your child is self-harming, do not self-diagnose. Take all signs seriously. That right there is, we need to address this. It's okay, but we need to find out what's deeper. Cognitive behavioral therapy. This is my favorite type of counseling. And I think cognitive CBT it deals with the mindset. Again, there's a situation. What are your thoughts? Okay? How do you feel as a result of that? So how you feel, that's going to dictate that behavior. And it just becomes a cycle. This is a young man in Missouri that I was life coaching for about 8 weeks. Tough situation. Worked with them for 8 weeks. And I remember I got this from the high school principal. Never thought the young man was going to make it. So it's okay. It's okay if your child needs someone to talk to. Do not be the parent, oh, what did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. Think about everything that our kids are exposed to. Has nothing to do with you, most likely. but our responsibility. And I'm going to say this too. And I think one of the reasons why people don't want to come out to these events, if you're more concerned about your reputation than the well-being of your child, you're part of the problem. Your child matters so much more than your reputation. And I think when you took that attitude, you'd be showing other families, how can I support you? We're all in this together. Now, let me say this. In some of the homework that I've done, and I hope I'm right, I think your area, Hunterdon Central Regional, this is a high-performing school community. Parents want, okay. I think that's great, but it comes with a cost. Because now our kids are thinking that they might have to be perfect. And the grind is so hard. I had a young man, I'm in upstate New York back in June, talking to a 16-year-old boy, comes in, sits down, good-looking boy, nice, just well-spoken. I really like this young man. I said to him, I said, can I ask you a question? He says, yeah. I said, are you tired? This young man stood up, he looked at me, he's like, Mr. Yalden, I'm tired in ways sleep can't help. I was like, wow. Now, if I tell you, your child's tired, you can make, my kid ain't tired. I'm tired. I've been working since I was 14 years old. I'm now 50. I've been working 6 days a week. I walk to work, walk home to school, walk uphill, boat whip. It's a different kind of tired. Go back to about 2012 when these devices started to really infiltrate our homes, and now we're not able to get off them. We have no downtime for our kids. Our kids are going to bed with their devices. That REM sleep is becoming depleted. So we have a responsibility of retraining them and bringing back what we once used to know. Now, I think our social media devices, I think it's awesome if it's used with boundaries. And we learn, I designed this on Canva. I don't know if you're impressed, I was. Lack of coping skills, lack of problem-solving skills. I think those are the two really big significant issues that we're dealing with. Situation, thoughts, feelings, behavior. Situation arises, thoughts, facts about it. Those thoughts trigger the feelings, and based on our feelings, we engage behaviors. The cycle continues. If we don't get our mind right, situation, thoughts, we've lost. Cognitive behavioral therapy teaches you how to look at a situation. Is it true? Is it not true? Do I need to get involved? Do I not need to get involved? It's not about me. Let it go. I'm just going to not let my thoughts get the best of me. Breaking the cycle, behavioral activation. So behavioral activation is not, it's not evidence-based. It's just more practical app. Here's the victim mentality. This is the fixed mindset. Yeah, I know. Inactivity, isolation is toxic. And we keep talking about, well, COVID, the pandemic, our kids haven't been in school. I do agree with that, but I'm tired of hearing it. I think when you go back to around 2012, our devices have started to make us isolate more and more. The more time we spend here, the more time we don't want to go out there. So in order to do this, behavioral activation says, do this. Do more of what matters to you. Motion changes emotion. Then that becomes like self-reinforcing. You feel better about yourself. If you do this and feel good, you're going to want to do it more. And that becomes a new cycle. That's why when we're okay with our kids just sitting on the sofa and not doing anything and playing with their phone, we're enabling a behavior that makes them feel more stuck and less likely to be able to get out of it. Our job as parents is to push them to go do things they like to do. Get them involved. I'm going to say something later, but I'm going to say it right now because I'm thinking about it. I think 3 things are really important with teens. Number 1, sleep. I think kids need 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep, and if your kid is ugly, they need more. Okay. Because this is on camera, let me reiterate what I mean by that. I'm not saying your kids are ugly. I don't know how they are in this area of the country. But what I'm saying is when they go to bed with their devices, that REM sleep, they don't get 8. It comes down to like 4, maybe 3, because the notification goes off in the middle of the night, and then all of a sudden it's like, OMG, SMH. Oh, it's going down tomorrow. Let me text all my friends. Oh, you got to be at school tomorrow. Oh, it's happening. Don't miss it. So that sleep is now 3 hours, and then they come down, and there you are, happy parent. Oh, good morning, honey. And your child's like, Mom, how about like shut up forever? That is what I mean by ugly. Sometimes you got to be really careful because people like to especially with mental health, it's so easy. I said, it's okay to not be okay. But what are you going to do about it? That triggered, you can't say triggered anymore. You got to say stressed. This is why I'm trying to retire. It's getting really hard. And I feel like if I retire, then I'm part of the problem. But we're becoming so, I have to be politically correct. But those words alone, it's okay to not be okay, stress someone that it was just a huge deal. While I'm on that, okay. Tori, we were having some of this conversation on the way out. We were talking about like the LGBTQ plus community. I'm very open-minded. I've learned that with my imperfections, and there's a lot of them, quiet, Tori. I try not to judge people because I think that when I'm judging people, I'm not doing the work that I need to do on myself. Having said that, education is really having a tough time with this. We're now dealing with, and I want to be so, I want to be really sensitive as I'm saying this. I'm hearing that in schools we're dealing with furries. Have we heard about them here?
I've heard of it before, but I haven't heard of it here.
Okay, well, just wait. Okay. Have the kids started asking for litter boxes in the bathroom? Okay.
But it's close.
Yeah, I know it's happening all over. What I'm trying to say here is, as a parent, I think it's our responsibility to listen and support our child with what they're going through. There's a part of me that wants to say this could be a phase, but I think that's insensitive. There's another part of me that says maybe there's something broken, and this is how they're responding. And then there's another part of me that there's so much information on the outside that they're bringing into them, but then there's another part of me that says maybe this is biological. I don't know. I think our job, especially when it comes to their mental wellness, their well-being, how can we unconditionally love and support them where they're at so they feel comfortable with who they are and they either work through what's broken or it comes out that this is more biological. Did I say that okay? Thank you. I'm doing good tonight. I'm proud of myself. We talked about that. We can retrain. Our brains can be rewired. So I think that's another reason why it's okay to talk to someone. We're talking about meditation today. Talking about like just centering yourself, letting go of the noise, retraining the brain to stay calm. Feelings, cultivating mindfulness, relaxation techniques, stress, anxiety. There's so many times I'll be in a school, I might be talking to teachers or kids, and I ask this question, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being very low, 10 being like really high. Where are you as far as like high stress, anxiety, I'm overwhelmed? 6 out of 10, anybody? Everybody. 7 out of 10, hands up. 8 out of 10. I had one girl, she raised both hands. I said, I just said one hand. She said, Jeff, I'm in a 20. I said 10. She said, I cry every day. I asked this to teachers. 6 out of 10, 7 to 8 out of 10, 9, 10 out of 10. Think about this. As a parent, how present are you in your child's life if you're at a 7 or an 8? What about if you would judge a teacher? If you're one of my child's teachers and you're living at a 7, 8, you know what? You're not giving my child the best education. You should be more present. How present do you think your child is if they're at a 7 or an 8? Now, the DSM mental health says if you are at a 6 out of 10, you are now diagnosed with the mental illness. Being overwhelmed is now a classified mental illness. Interesting, but gaming isn't. I get asked that question all the time. Jeff, do you think gaming affects mental health? And I know what the research says. And the research says, I'm not going to say stupid. That's not a good word. The research is like 10, 15 years old. None of the new research, as far as like going back to the social media and all, is even out. And so they say gaming doesn't affect someone's mental health. And I'm like, it doesn't help. But you can't say that because that's not based on research. Well, then put the research out there. Feelings, behaviors. Emotion will always change. Okay. Today's youth, depression, anxiety, stress, ADHD, and bipolar. This is one of my problems growing up. I was diagnosed with a learning disability. I think I had that too, as you can probably tell. As I learned a lot about me, and I got diagnosed with major depression, bipolar type 2, and post-traumatic stress disorder, I don't know if it was so much a learning disability as it was my bipolar. But here's the thing. I don't think it's safe or healthy to label or diagnose a child because the brain doesn't mature 23, 25 years old. What I like to say is it's okay to seek help, but let's look at treating the symptom, not the diagnosis yet. And if there is a diagnosis, it's so okay to get a second opinion. The other thing, have a journal. You could take 1 year of getting your child diagnosed, and without a journal, the doctor's going to try to figure it out on their own. If you write everything down on this date, this time, my child did this, they reacted this way, I said this, here's what happened, blah, blah, blah. Now they're on medication. Medication is a Band-Aid. But I think medication with therapy is responsible. Therapy, counseling, that gives you tools to put in your toolkit to learn how to respond or to cope or problem solve. That combined with maybe medication that could be a mood stabilizer could be a game changer if it's done responsibly with a medical professional. I'm going to say this too. If you are on medication and you're self-medicating, it just cancels each other out. So today's youth, self-harming behaviors, again, cutting, reckless behavior. And I'm not just talking pot. Do you think vaping is self-medicating? Sure. Absolutely. So my work with law enforcement, I always thought, up until a couple years ago, I thought like meth and heroin, crack cocaine was the major issue. When I work with law enforcement, and I have a contract with the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, New Mexico, their big concern on the street today is pot, marijuana. And where I'm conflicted is we see all these states starting to legalize it. In my family, I've seen what medicated pot, how it can help someone, help me see why people do it. But nonetheless, I'm not a fan of it. What's concerning me is where people are getting it. You know about fentanyl. Well, I just had kidney stones, I had back surgery, I was in the hospital, and I remember a month ago they gave me morphine. Usually Dilaudid is what they gave me. They gave me morphine one night. And I remember when they gave it to me through the IV, I was screaming. I was in so much pain. And then they gave me morphine, and I'm like, did my kidney stones go away? Like that, I felt better. Now, fentanyl is 100 times more potent than morphine. Now you have carfentanil, which is 50 times more potent than fentanyl, which is 100 times more potent than morphine. Crazy, right? Now they have candy-colored looking fentanyl. We have Halloween coming up. I don't want to get into politics. I don't go there. But I want you to pay attention to something. We have a lot of people coming across the border, and they're infiltrating our small markets, and they're bringing the drugs in, the cartels. And it's called supply and demand. How can I make my product better to sell more? They don't care who they're selling it to. And so you think it takes the tip of a pencil lead fentanyl to kill you. And so we have all these street pharmacists that are playing with this, and so many people self-medicating. No wonder why this is an epidemic we're dealing with. So part of my conversation with this 14-year-old is her impulsivity and her reckless behavior and putting herself out there. And I went from a therapist point of view to, I need to be a father figure here. And it was so weird because I'm like, listen, I need you to be careful to not put yourself in situations you don't need to be in. It takes 2 seconds to make a bad choice and 30 years to recover from it. Again, so how do we do that? I have learned as I've gotten older, I get so much more out of young people just by keeping my voice down and listening. And then I might say, are you venting and you just want me to listen? Because I can do that. Or are you venting and you want my opinion? Rarely do they ever want your opinion. But when they know that they can speak and you're willing to listen, you're going to notice they'll start asking, like, Mom, what would you do? And that is, I think, where we want to strive to get to. And then go to your room and be like, oh my God, I can't believe I just had that conversation. I think I'm going to throw up. I put these pictures in not to stress you. This is my day. These are my conversations every day. The more we talk about this, the less we're going to have this. We just found out that blank friend committed suicide, ended their life. Jeff, she didn't make it. I don't want this to happen in your community. And I'll tell you what, every community is one person away from a contagion. That means multiple people. You don't even have to know who ended their life for you to think, well, maybe if I do that, people will talk about me too. One person can send a whole community into an uproar. Bullying, I'll get to that. I hate talking about that. All right, social media devices always being on. This picture right here is she was a junior in Missouri, the principal's niece. School had 34 kids in the high school. This is 3 weeks after, locker was still there, and I, with the junior class, we decided then to take the locker down. Imagine, most popular kid in school, principal's niece, ends their life by suicide. Only 34 kids in the high school. It was one of the toughest things I've ever been a part of. The danger zone. Here's the danger zone. If your child spends more than 4 or 5 hours a day on their devices, they're 72% more likely to have major depression in their life. Let me reword that a little bit. One of the things I like about our devices, I think education is free. You can look something up. When we were growing up, we'd have to go to the library, take out that deck of cards, and go find the book, sit down. That's not the right book. Oh, let's do it again. So that takes us 2 hours to be able to do some research. Today, you can just take out your phone, Google, boobs, find out everything you want. It's that quick. So, and that was probably inappropriate, but at least you're listening. If you're educating yourself and looking things up, okay, I'm okay with that. But if you're going home like many of our kids and we're isolating ourselves and we're sitting on TikTok or Snapface or Insta or whatever, and we're watching everybody else wondering why their lives are better than ours, that I think is a problem. The safe zone depends what you're doing. The dopamine effect, here's the problem. I think we've created this technology without thinking of the repercussions, the consequences of it. I love it, but I think we could have been more responsible. And so the dopamine effect is very similar to saying to an alcoholic, well, you need to stop drinking. Okay, well, you're an adult, so you can navigate that course. But you're going to tell a 14-year-old child that is essentially an alcoholic with social media that you need to stop. I think we could have done it more responsibly. Who's this fall on now? The parents. What do? Remember when we were growing up and if you didn't do your homework, your parents made you sit at the dining room table until you finished? I think we need to bring back some of that. Take the phone away so they do their homework. But then I know what they're going to say, and they're good. I need my phone to do my homework. Make them. Here's the other thing. I get this question a lot. Jeff, my kid doesn't have social media. I've taken my phone away. Good for you. You can't take their device away because, again, they know what they know. Everybody else has it. This is how they're growing up. And so if you take it away, you're taking their childhood away. How can we give it to them and teach them how to be responsible? And if they're not being responsible, then there are consequences. That's what Now, here's another thing. Does anyone here know the legal age of having a social media profile? How old's your child, miss? Oh, good for you. Do you have a child? They're in their 20s? Okay. I see there's one family here out of 27. How old are your beautiful children?
I'm 17. Go for it. I'm 15. 15.
Are you all one family?
No.
So you all just chose to come out tonight?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm honored. Thank you. Okay. Does anybody have any kids younger? 14. No, younger? Yeah, but I know. I hear all the time, kids 9, 10, 11, 12, and they've got Snapface and Insta and TikTok, and then they're telling me all the problems they're having. And I'm thinking to myself, one was a superintendent of schools lady. And do you know that that's illegal? You shouldn't? But then everybody else has it. I know, and I'm not really criticizing you. But again, I'll say this. Texas just passed a law that if your child has child pornography on their device, not only can your child be brought up as a level 3 sex offender, but so can the parents. And so when we're giving our kids these devices, well, Miss, if one of your beautiful kids gets, well, I mean, who pays the phone bill? Whose name is it in? So if she does something, and kids, listen, kids do things. Today, I don't understand, when I was growing up, we used to trade baseball cards. You know, kids say, it's like they trade pictures without, and I know, gentlemen, I know how smooth you are too. Like, what's up, girl? I love you. I love donuts. Not the same thing, but it's like, send me a picture. And the girl's like, okay. If you, never mind, you got the point, right? Okay. So mandating off time, the next decade, you will see a 31% increase in teen suicide, drug and alcohol-related deaths. And a lot of this is because we're not being responsible how we're using these devices and learning about them. So mandating off time. I think Sunday is a great day. Put your phone away. Go out, climb the tree, climb the fence, beat up the neighbor. Let's get back to the thing. Well, don't beat up the neighbor, but you know what I'm talking about. All right, social media apps and stuff. I don't think I need to go into this. Lynn, I can give you these slides. I think you need to understand what all these social media apps are doing. And I know it's like, oh my gosh, it's always changing. Yeah, once we figure out one, another one is being created. And if you think that your child, and I'm saying this for the camera because there's nobody in here really has teenagers except one family. If you think that you're smooth and you took away your kid's Snapface account, I bet you they have another one you know nothing about, and they're accessing it by getting to their friend's phone. When I wrote my book, Teen Suicide, I put, I think like 2016, 18, 100% of kids had access to devices. And my ghostwriter, editor at the time was like, you can't put that, you can't prove it. Like, you gotta be kidding me. And I proved it like this. Everybody has access to go down to the school library or get on their friend's device, and boom, they've got access to everything. So it's out there. I'm going to go through some of this real quick. My favorite is the calculator app. Here's why. Not because I'm a math person. 5 out of 4 people have trouble with math. I'm one of them. But nobody uses the calculator app. So they make these Apple Watches today that flip open, and they're like a vaping canister. That's like a decoy. On those iPhones, the calculator button also is a decoy to hide files underneath it that nobody would look at. That, I think, is really funny. All right. Let's just go through this quick. Meet Me, dating, social media app connects people based on location. Why are teenagers sharing their location? You guys, upstate New York, Albany, New York, one of the politics, somebody drive-by shooting, shot up the house, teenagers are in there. I don't know what it's about. But I think if you're sharing location, it's easy for someone to see where you're at. Or it's like me. I'm a bachelor living in Florida. If hey, I'm up in New Jersey. Oh, Jeff Yalden's not home. Let's go rob his house and take his dog. WhatsApp, a messaging app that allows text. Bumble, similar to Tinder, requires women to make the first contact. Law enforcement says kids and teens can create fake accounts and falsify their age. All of these are very easy for kids to make their own accounts. LiveMe, live streaming that uses geolocation to share videos. Users can earn coins to pay minors for photos. We live in a sick world. Ask FM, bullying, anonymous questions. Grindr. I've got a friend who does forensic, she's a forensic psychologist for the Florida State Police. Her son, 8th grade, uses Grindr to meet truck drivers, 8th grade, at the rest area to do what they do. One of the most horrendous, horrifying things I've ever heard. Grindr also is popular in Connecticut. 8 people were caught. They met together off of a rest area of 95 on Grindr. It's LGBTQ. TikTok, a new app popular. I didn't say LGBTQ in a negative manner right there, but going back to Grindr, it's geared towards the LGBTQ community. Does that make sense? I hope so. I know this is on film. And TikTok, it's a new, but no, it's not new anymore. Let's use it to create and share short videos. I think it's kind of funny. But what bothers me about it is that I think it's the FYP page. I'm seeing women posting content that makes me shake my head. And I'm a guy. But I'm thinking about, do you have that little respect in yourself to post this out to millions? I don't think people realize that this stuff doesn't get deleted. You know, especially for young people. Whatever you post online, it's permanent. Colleges, this is, when we submit our application, it goes through the admissions department. Colleges now have sophomore students that sit in the admissions area. They look at your applications, they look at your social media, and they're like, yep, that student looks like a jerk. We're not going to accept them. Rutgers, delete. Nope. Oh, that person, no, UPenn, whatever. Nope, stupid. Princeton, oh, no, you're like, no. They don't want that representing their community. Jobs. You know, they're going to pay you $100,000 a year or the NIL money. They're looking at how you represent yourself before they're thinking about, do they want you representing their community? So I think that's really important to start talking to our kids about. Snapface, that started out as sexting. Holla, addicting video chat, lets users meet people in seconds. Calculator Plus, hide photos, videos, files. Scout, never really heard of that. Kids can create accounts. Badoo, I'm not sure what that is either, but dating, social media app. Kick, kids can bypass traditional text messaging, unlimited access to anyone, anywhere, anytime. Then Whisper, Hot or Not. Again, I can share this with you and you can share it. Suicide is very rarely the cause of one thing. A lot of times, I'll have a suicide in the community. The community will reach out to me, and then parents, oh, it's bullying, it's bullying. Rarely is suicide the cause of one thing. One thing can certainly be the straw that breaks the camel's back. As much as I think, let's go to the next one. In my career, this is probably one of the hardest days of my life. This young lady, now transgender, Stanley, North Dakota, I had to put her in an ambulance to drive 80 miles to Minot alone with just the paramedics. She was 17 years old. Her mother, strung out on drugs, we went to the house. Mother said, she'll be fine. And as I put her in the ambulance, and she was strapped in, and I just hugged her, and I just said, I'm so proud of you. And then the next year, I went back to the community. I'm going back in December, and I got to spend time with him. We live in a society today where many of our kids and families are broken. And I think even though we're broken, we can still be repaired by coming back together. And a lot of times I see our families going like this. We need to stop and focus on coming back together. And I think one of the questions we ask is, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are we doing? And if it's ever anything less than a 7, it's like, all right, what do we got to do? And a lot of time I find it's communication. Parents, I want to share with you, a lot of times we might say to our significant other or our kids or a friend that might be going through a time, hey, how you doing? And typically, fine. What does that mean? It means I'm fine, leave me alone, I don't want to talk about it. Here's the question that I have learned to like to ask. How is your heart? Because when you say, how is your heart? Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's deep. You care. Yeah, of course I care. How is your heart? And when you ask that question, you're asking it because you really want to know. I think it's just customary. Hey, how you doing? Like, you really care? So, how is your heart? Kids are mean. Whose responsibility? As a parent, do you know if your child is a bully or not? I kind of think you probably should know. If your kid is a bully, I think you need to rein that kid back in. I don't care how you do it, but don't be mean. Schools have a zero tolerance policy. I know there's cameras all over, cameras not in the bathrooms. Schools are doing the best they can. I think our responsibility, support the school. If you have a problem, make an appointment. Don't go out in the community. We need to work together. When we were growing up, God forbid, if a teacher, well, they did. When teachers would call home to my parents, I think, would be like, thank you for calling. If my son makes it to school tomorrow, you will not have a problem. I feel like today it's like, what did you do to provoke my child? Listen, it takes a village to raise a child. And I think our community, our parents need to work together with the school and the child. We all need to work together. Going back to bullying, cyberbullying, 90 to 95% mental illness. The two biggest challenges, coping skills, problem-solving skills. I also ask this question all the time. Who's the hardest person to get to know? People say ourselves. Our kids are trying to figure out who they are. And sometimes we show who we are by tearing people down to show that we're better. Teen depression today. Chemical changes, think about it, hormonal. Teen depression occurs, important to get help, restoring the brain's chemical balance. If you don't, prolonged depression can lead to self-destructive behaviors. Blah, blah, blah. Neurotransmitters. Jeff, the day you came to talk to my school was the day I had planned to end all the depression, pain, and also my life. Then what I call a miracle happened. You came to talk to my school today. I've gotten quite a few of those. I think every 500 kids I'm talking to, there's at least 2 kids that have an imminent plan to want to end their life. Neurotransmitters send chemicals between the neurons. I kind of look at it as, this is going to be borderline inappropriate, but it'll be entertaining. I kind of look at it as like the sperm trying to find the egg. 500 million sperm racing to find the egg. That's kind of like the neurons, the transmitters, chemical messages between the neurons, trying to like get there. Mental illnesses, I said that wrong. I haven't said in a while. I lost myself. Chemicals in the brain being out of balance. The brain can be rewired. Again, I think medication, if it's responsibly given and the doctor is administering it. Therapy. I'm a yoga teacher. Don't laugh. Big people can do yoga. Yoga, quiet, sir. Yoga has been, to me, as important as me being on medication and my therapy. I'm doing an online program now for schools. I would love to see school communities bring mindfulness into the curriculum. How to tell this? The next slide, if your child has 5 or 7 of all of these symptoms in a 2-week period without any break, does that make sense? If your child has 5 or 7 of these in a 2-week period without any break, there's a good chance that there's depressive disorder here. And that has to be, or should be checked. Withdrawing from family friends, losing interest in social extracurricular activities, lack of energy, tired, anxiety, irritability, anger, sadness for much of the time, weight fluctuations, sleep pattern changes, physical pains and aches, even though there's nothing physically wrong. Indifference about the future, afraid of being a burden, uncharacteristic pessimism, guilty feelings, lowering self-esteem, suicidal thoughts. Now you might be thinking, well, that's my husband. Sorry. When you have this conversation all the time, you got to try and have fun with it a little bit. So here's what I don't want you thinking. I don't want you to write this down. Well, 5 of the 7. No, I think he's only had 4. Hasn't been 2 weeks. I think it's been 13 days. Stop. Here's what I like to say. If you see these red flags, like if you see in your son or daughter, or you want to get rid of your husband and just assume that he's got all of this, red flags, do something. Take action. What do I recommend? The conversation. Compassionate listening. Validating people's thoughts and feelings. Just be present. So if you see red flags, go for it. I do yoga. I said that. Treatment for depression, self-care. Again, sleep. Oh, I didn't finish that. The second thing, nutrition. More water, less soda. More protein, less carbs. You know who's best friends? Sugar and depression. Number 3, put the devices down, get more involved. I think not just our kids, I think for all of us. Exercise, motion changes emotion. I also do therapy for Aspire 365 all over the country, and I can't tell you how many adults I meet with. And the one thing I always come back to is, what is your self-care? Oh, I don't have any. When was the last time you had a physical? You met with the doctor? Oh, no. What are you doing to, self-care, take care of yourself? Drinking. Most of mental health, I'm finding, I think can be taken care of if we take care of ourselves. Goal setting. Be kind to yourself. Set reasonable goals. Go after them. Managing stress. Again, exercise. Lay it out there. Be patient in the process. 5 elements. This is another important thing. Number 1, hope. Don't ever lose hope. Hope comes from having a purpose. With young people today, a lot of them, I don't have a purpose. I don't know what my purpose is. High-performing school, nope, you're going to go to a great college, you're going to get great grades. You want more for your child than they want for themselves. You want them to go to this school. They might not want to go to school. You might want them to study this. They don't want to study this. We're pushing them and pushing them. Here is the purpose that I want for your kids. Wake up, get up, dress up, and show up. That's it. Most people don't even show up. Now show up on time, be present, and be engaged. If your child can do that in middle school and high school, I honestly think their future will take care of itself. Wake up, get up, dress up, show up. Hope. Number 2, personal responsibility. Be where you should be, doing what you should do at the time you should be doing it. It takes 2 seconds to make a bad choice, 30 years to recover. Remember the I over the E, never the E over the I. Intellect over emotion Never emotion over intellect. Number 3, education. Education is every day. Growth mindset, not fixed mindset. Self-advocacy. Teach your kids it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask a question. I can't help if I don't know you need help. You got to speak up, but do it in a tactful manner because the world owes you nothing. And then number 5, who's your support system? I meet so many kids. Who is your significant, trusted adult? You? Like, dude, you just met me. You met me an hour ago. Kids don't have they go to a school with all these teachers and coaches and administrators, and they feel that they can't talk to them. Our kids need to know that adults are not the enemy, and they have to be able to reach out to them. So you say, what do I do? It's okay to ask for help. Contact your school. They've got great resources. The problem is they don't need to know my business. Stop. Call your doctor. Do something. Communicate. Take all signs seriously. Normalize the conversation. We all have a responsibility to do that. I don't think that you need to be a mental health professional to save a child's life. Ultimately, we might need to get them there, but the more involved we are, the more lives we're going to save. Okay. Any questions?